There are 11 things I will never do in my cruise ship cabin. After decades of cruising, I've seen a number of passengers get hassled by staff and even disembark the ship at a port of call. And most cruisers don't even realize they're doing something wrong. I've been embarrassed myself by a couple of these items, and in this video, I'm going to save you that trouble. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you fresh cruise advice, money-saving hacks, and secret strategies the cruise lines don't advertise. Let's get started. If you go on a lot of cruises, you're bound to see a number of things, including somebody sitting out on their balcony completely naked. I saw this once when I was docked in Costa Maya and there was a ship immediately across the dock from mine. I just looked right out the deck and saw somebody sitting on their balcony buck naked. This is something I will never do. Take off my clothes on the balcony. Now, I'll be honest, I might walk out there in my underwear once or twice, but usually when it's dark and I'm pretty confident nobody's gonna see anything. And this goes for getting a little heated out there as well, because not only is it possible to see what's going on by the reflection in some of those glass panes or by the spaces between the dividers and the floor or the dividers and the ceiling, but it also is quite easy for others in balconies around you to hear any noise that you're making out there. Never, never, never leave your peephole uncovered in your stateroom. And this is because on many cruise ships, that peephole goes both ways. It's not unidirectional like you might expect. So anybody from the outside can put their eye right up to that thing and see right in. I don't like even thinking about that. So I either bring a magnet to place over and hang something over that, or I bring a piece of duct tape and just cover it up. I used to travel a lot with little kids, and one thing I refused to do was leave them alone in the cabin. When the kids are young, you never know what they might get into, and they could get into some harm, especially if you have a balcony cabin. And even when my kids were between the ages of 5 and 10, I still didn't leave them alone in the cabin. Now, when they're teenagers, I feel a little differently about that. My belief is that parents know when their kids are old enough to be left alone, even on a cruise ship cabin. But unfortunately these days, there's way too many people minding other people's business, and it's just not worth the hassle. I've heard of several situations where another passenger complained about a cabin across the hall, or that they noticed where kids were being left in there alone, and their judgment, the kids weren't old enough. And you don't need that kind of scrutiny when you're on vacation. This one I learned the hard way. I was at a port of call once and it was really nice outside, not too humid, and so I left the balcony door open to let some fresh air in, and I left my room for a while. Well, lo and behold, when I came back to my cabin, I had flurries of bugs everywhere. I had to call the cabin steward to have that problem taken care of. That was very embarrassing. So I will never leave my balcony door open, especially when I'm not in the room. But even when I'm in the room, it causes a lot of problems. It can bring in a lot of humidity. It can interfere with the air conditioning system and make it not work properly in your room. And you can get mosquitoes and bugs in there, especially if you're at a port of call. And that's no fun at all. One thing you realize pretty quickly when you start cruising a lot is that all of these cabins, even if you spring for an upgrade, are very tiny. And that means that any little smells in there start to really permeate through the entire room, and it makes it kind of uncomfortable. So I never leave out food or food waste or dirty dishes in my cabin. If I get room service or if I bring back food from the buffet and I'm eating in the room, I always either take those dishes back to the buffet or call room service to come and pick up the dirty dishes. They really actually prefer you do this because room stewards don't like having to deal with this when they come in to clean your room. And if you've got food waste on those dishes or other food waste in your room, don't just throw it in the trash can. That can cause a big mess for the room steward, and it can also lead to some pretty nasty aromas in your small cabin. And there's one other simple thing you can do to really help your room steward out. When I was younger, I'll be honest, I used to really loosen up on my manners when I was on vacation. And sometimes I'd feel like, well, I'm paying for a hotel. If I leave trash around, they can clean it up when they come in to make up the room. And I did that a time or two on a cruise ship. Just left trash on the floor for the room steward to clean up. But I realized over time that's not really the best approach, and it's kind of rude because these room stewards have a lot of work to do. Nobody likes to go around picking up trash off the floor, especially if I spill something like a bag of chips or a drink on the carpet. I either clean it up completely myself or I call housekeeping and ask for help. That's the better way to do it than just to leave a surprise for your room attendant. And this next item I would never even consider doing. For many years now, all the major cruise lines have banned smoking in staterooms and on stateroom balconies. And there's a good reason for this. It goes beyond the safety and fire hazard of it. Personally, I don't smoke, so I would never even consider this. But for smokers, it would be pretty easy to just step out on your balcony and smoke out there. I mean, you're just like stepping outside at your house. On a cruise ship, the problem with that is you've got a lot of balconies in close proximity, and that smoke travels and ends up weaving its way to other people's balconies, and if they have the door open, into their cabins. Cruise lines get a lot of complaints about this. And as for smoking in your cabin, that just leaves that smell for the next guest, and it's very hard to get rid of, and that's a big reason why it's just not allowed. All major cruise lines have designated smoking areas throughout the ship. If you are a smoker, I recommend trying MSC. They have more than most, and they tend to cater more to smokers than other cruise lines. I talk to a lot of cruisers, and a number of cruisers have told me that when a cruise ship is at sea, it's under maritime law, which may be true, but that doesn't mean that things that are illegal in the US or other countries are then all of a sudden legal on a cruise ship. In fact, I never bring anything illegal on board with me. No illegal substances, and that includes marijuana, even though it is legal in some areas. Under US federal law, because it's not, all cruise lines who sail in North America do not allow it. It's completely prohibited. And if you get caught with stuff like that, I've actually seen people disembark the ship. Maybe even reported to the authorities. You don't need that hassle. Especially if you're in the Caribbean, some of the itineraries go to countries where it's completely legal and other countries where it's completely illegal. And if you happen to be docked at one of those countries where it's illegal and you're found to have it, you could be facing some serious trouble. One thing I'll never do in my cruise ship cabin is move my mattress or furniture around. After all, why would I hassle with that? However, it's a big trend on TikTok and social media these days to bring your mattress out on the balcony as if you're going to sleep out there. Trust me, nobody wants to sleep out there. It gets humid at night. It's rather uncomfortable. And think about what that does to the mattress. It can get mold built up on it pretty easily. It's actually rather irresponsible for people to be promoting this on social media. It is against policy on most major cruise lines. And if you get caught doing it, you could be fined or charged the cost of a new mattress. If I ever need anything moved around in my cabin, I ask my cabin attendant about it. He's usually more than happy to accommodate my wishes. For example, there'll be times when there's a table in there, like a little coffee table that's kind of in the way. And sometimes when I've been traveling with kids and I need more space, I just ask them to remove it, and they never had a problem doing it. So I don't try to move it around or hide it out of the way. I let the professionals handle it. This next item is a big one for peace of mind, but before I get to that, I'd like to know, have you ever taken your mattress off of a bed at a hotel or in a cruise cabin? It just sounds crazy to me. Am I wrong? When I was a kid, my grandma used to leave money lying around in places throughout her house. And anytime I would go to visit, I'd see it there. I didn't think much of it. But then she started to get a little forgetful later in life. And she'd forget where she put some money. So the first thing she'd say is, "Who took my money? Who moved that money?" She'd automatically assume somebody did something with it. And that's one reason I never leave anything valuable out in the open in my cabin. Because if I forget where I put it, the first thing I'm going to think is, well, did the steward move it? Or, what happened? I don't want him or her to be in that situation, and I definitely don't want to lose track of my things. So anything valuable, I always use the safe, stick it right in there, and I always know my important things are there. So if I'm ever looking for my cash or my wallet or my cards, I know where they are because I always put them in the safe. And this last item can really save you some embarrassment. But first, I would ask if you take a moment and subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button. It does help us grow, and we appreciate your support. If you've been cruising before, you know you usually get to know your cabin steward pretty well, at least on an informal basis. You're seeing him several times a day, if not in your cabin, at the cabin across the hall or next door when you're coming and going to your room. So the last thing you want to do is leave something out in your cabin that could be a little embarrassing. If you bring anything like a sexual aid or lingerie, don't leave it out for him to have to move around or even look at. It just leaves for some awkward moments. And then cruise lines have gotten more and more strict about what you cannot bring on board. These banned lists are growing every month. So if you happen to bring something on and get it through that maybe you shouldn't have, don't leave that out in the open either. It's not something to brag about. It's just something that you should keep to yourself, because if the cabin steward finds out, it's possible he might say something, and then you might have security knocking on your door. So did I leave anything out that you would never do in your cruise cabin? Put it in the comments below, and I'll tell you how to get the most value on your next cruise right here.